I have to confess something that left me speechless. A neurologist with decades of experience publicly admitted he was in shock. He did not say it lightly. He did so after discovering that an apparently harmless habit, a gesture that millions of people perform every night without thinking twice, can increase the risk of suffering a stroke overnight. Yes, you heard that right. A simple everyday habit can be the spark that ignites the storm inside the brain. This is not a myth, nor a baseless rumor. It is medical evidence supported by serious studies and by the direct experience of specialists who have seen how older patients arrived at the hospital in an emergency after an unexpected stroke. What is most striking is not only the brutality of this finding, but that no one warns about it in time. No one teaches us to protect the most delicate organ of all, the brain. Imagine for a moment that you go to sleep like any other day. You lie down with confidence, convinced that you will wake up to live one more day. But at dawn, the story changes forever. That is the reality of thousands of older people every year, and the reason why this message is so urgent. The brain does not hand out second chances easily. When a blood vessel breaks or becomes blocked, the consequences are immediate and often irreversible. But I also want to convey hope. Because although this habit increases the danger, there are clear measures you can take today to reduce the risk and gain years of healthy life. That is the good news. Prevention is in your hands. In the next few minutes, we are going to go through together which habits are most dangerous, how they affect the brain, and what concrete steps you can take to protect yourself and your loved ones. This is not a topic for tomorrow. It is a topic for today. Your brain health, your independence, and even your life may depend on paying attention to these warnings. And before we begin, I would love to get to know you a little better. How old are you, and from where are you watching this video? Write it in the comments. Your experience and your voice are also part of this community. The power and fragility of the brain. The brain is, without a doubt, the most astonishing and at the same time most vulnerable organ in the human body. It weighs barely 1.5 kilos, and yet it is the command center of everything we are. There are stored the memories of an entire life, the lessons learned, the emotions, the desires, and even the most intimate identity of each person. When we think about it coolly, it is incredible that something so complex can be sustained thanks to a delicate network of blood vessels and electrical connections that work in silence without our noticing. For the brain to remain alive and active, it needs a constant flow of blood. That blood carries oxygen and essential nutrients that feed millions of neurons. If that supply is interrupted even for a few minutes, the damage can be irreversible. Unlike other organs, the brain does not have large energy reserves. It depends immediately on what it receives at every instant. That is the reason neurologists repeat again and again that in brain matters, every second counts. What is most alarming is that a cerebrovascular accident can happen overnight without prior warning. People who go to bed apparently healthy can wake up with difficulty speaking, with half of the body paralyzed, or, in some cases, unable ever to wake up again. That is the brutal reality of what we know as a stroke. There are two main types of stroke. The first is the ischemic stroke. It occurs when a clot blocks the passage of blood in an artery of the brain. It is as if a pipe suddenly becomes clogged and water stops reaching an entire neighborhood. In a matter of minutes, the cells deprived of oxygen begin to die. The second is the hemorrhagic stroke. In this case, what happens is the rupture of a blood vessel inside the brain. Blood leaks into brain tissue and causes pressure, inflammation, and direct damage to neurons. Both scenarios are equally devastating, but the causes and risk factors can be different. To understand the magnitude of this threat, it is enough to remember the story of Mr. Manuel, a 75-year-old man who lived in a small town. He had always been active. He walked every morning, tended his garden, and chatted with his neighbors in the square. No one would have said he was at risk. One night he went to bed as usual, after a light dinner and a card game with his friends. At dawn, his wife noticed that he was not responding clearly. He tried to speak, but the words came out jumbled. When she moved him, she discovered that his right arm had no strength. They took him to the hospital urgently, and the doctors confirmed the unthinkable. He had suffered a stroke while sleeping. Mr. Manuel's case is not exceptional. It happens every day in different parts of the world. People who seem healthy without previous symptoms suddenly face a radical change in their lives, and that is where neurologists insist that we must pay attention to habits that seem small but are, in reality, silent triggers. The brain, with all its power, depends on very fine balances. A slight increase in blood pressure, a change in circulation, or a microscopic obstruction can trigger a disaster. It is a brilliant and majestic organ, but at the same time fragile like crystal. And understanding that duality is the first step to caring for it as it deserves. The habit that triggers the risk. Neurologists agree on something that surprises many. It is not always a major disease that causes a stroke. Often it is an everyday habit, repeated night after night, that weakens the system until, suddenly, the unexpected happens. That habit may seem harmless, but its consequences are so dangerous that in some cases they determine whether a person wakes up the next day or not. One of the clearest examples is excessive salt consumption at dinner. Many older people have the habit of adding a little more salt to their food before sleeping, thinking it is no big deal. However, that excess causes an immediate increase in blood pressure. When pressure spikes during the night, the blood vessels of the brain are forced to withstand enormous tension. And let us remember that with age, arteries become more rigid and fragile. That combination is explosive. Another widespread habit is self-medicating with sleeping pills. On the surface, they help you fall asleep, but in reality, they alter the body's natural rhythm and, in some cases, affect cerebral circulation. In addition, they can cause falls when getting up in the middle of the night, which increases not only the risk of blows, but also of cerebrovascular crises. Even something as simple as sleeping in certain positions can become a problem. Sleeping face down or with the neck twisted for many hours can hinder blood flow to the brain. It is not immediate, but night after night that poor posture can contribute to the formation of microclots or to compromised circulation. And there is a habit that goes unnoticed, but that doctors underline with concern: getting up suddenly in the early hours. Many older people wake up to go to the bathroom and, without thinking, stand up quickly. That abrupt movement after several hours of rest can cause a sudden change in blood pressure. The heart speeds up, the blood vessels tense, and the brain receives a sudden jolt. For someone young, it may not pose a big problem, but for an older person, it may be enough to trigger a stroke. The science behind this is clear. The brain needs a constant, balanced blood flow. When that flow is altered by sudden pressure changes, by vessels that break, or by obstructions caused by clots, a stroke occurs. In simple terms, it is as if an old pipe suddenly received excessive water pressure. Sooner or later, it will crack or burst. That is why neurologists insist on prevention. It is not only about major medical treatments, but about adjusting those small gestures we repeat every night. Reducing salt, avoiding self-medication, minding posture while sleeping, and standing up slowly are simple decisions that can make the difference between a quiet life and a tragic outcome. And here, I want to leave you a phrase you should not forget. What you do every night before sleeping can be the difference between waking up or never waking up again. Early warning signs. The human body rarely remains in absolute silence before a crisis. It always sends messages, signals that warn us something is not right. The problem is that we often mistake them for passing discomforts or the simple tiredness of age. In the case of stroke, these early signs can be mild and fleeting, but ignoring them is a mistake that can cost far too much. Among the most common symptoms is sudden dizziness. I'm not talking about dizziness after turning your head too fast, but that unexpected sensation that everything is spinning for no reason. Sometimes it lasts only a few seconds and then disappears, so most people do not give it importance. But behind that small episode, there may be a disruption in cerebral blood flow. Another frequent sign is mild numbness in an arm, a leg, or on one side of the face. Many older people attribute it to a bad position or to normal tingling and simply wait for it to pass. But when a part of the body suddenly loses sensation, even for a few minutes, it is a red flag that must not be ignored. There are also sudden headaches, different from the usual ones. It is not the light discomfort from lack of sleep or tension, but a sudden, strong pain without a clear explanation. Sometimes it comes with nausea or blurry vision. And speaking of vision, this is another important warning. Episodes of cloudy or double vision that last a few moments and then return to normal. It may seem harmless, but in reality it is the brain saying that something is not going well. To illustrate how serious it can be to ignore these signals, I want to tell you the story of Mr. Richard, a 78-year-old man. For several weeks he experienced small bouts of dizziness when getting up and on one occasion lost strength in his left hand for a few seconds. He thought it was due to age and preferred not to bother his family or go to the doctor. One morning, while having breakfast, he began to speak in a confused way, as if the words were getting tangled in his mouth. His children became alarmed and took him immediately to the hospital. The neurologists confirmed what they feared. He had suffered a stroke. The dizziness and numbness were the prior warnings, the ones he decided to ignore. The lesson. Mr. Richard's experience leaves us is clear. Time is the most important factor. When these signs appear, it is not enough to wait for them to pass. It is essential to see a doctor immediately, or, if the symptoms are intense, to call emergency services. The sooner action is taken, the greater the chances of reducing damage and saving a life. The body speaks, and in the case of the brain, it does so with a very specific language. Unexpected dizziness, numbness, unusual headaches, blurry vision, these are all messages that must not be silenced. Let us pay attention, because in those small warnings may lie the difference between continuing with a full life or facing an unexpected tragedy. The role of blood pressure. Hypertension is known among doctors as the silent killer, and it is called that because it does not give notice, it does not cause obvious pain, it does not produce clear symptoms in its early stages. You can feel fine, even have enough energy for your daily activities, and yet your blood pressure may be silently damaging the arteries of your brain. When pressure rises abruptly, blood vessels are subjected to immense tension. Imagine an old hose with almost invisible cracks connected to a faucet that suddenly opens to full pressure. At first, the hose holds, but sooner or later it gives way. Something very similar happens in the brain. If a vessel breaks, a hemorrhage occurs. If it becomes obstructed, blood stops reaching certain vital areas. In older people, this risk is even greater. Over the years, the walls of the arteries lose elasticity and become more rigid. They no longer have the same capacity to adapt to changes in pressure. That is why a sudden increase can cause a disaster in a matter of seconds. The problem is that many times older adults make common mistakes. One of them is forgetting their hypertension medication. Skipping a dose may seem harmless, but in reality it opens the door to an immediate loss of control over blood pressure. Another mistake is self-medicating. Taking pills borrowed from a neighbor or adjusting the dose on your own not only fails to solve the problem, but can make it worse. And no less serious is the habit of not measuring blood pressure regularly. Some people think it is enough to do so once a month or when they feel unwell, but the truth is that pressure can vary every day, even every hour. The good news is that there are simple steps that help keep pressure under control. One is to create a relaxation routine before sleeping. It is not complicated. Breathing deeply for a few minutes, listening to calm music, or practicing a brief meditation can make a difference. These small gestures help the body release accumulated tension and help the heart work more calmly during the night. Let us always remember, hypertension cannot be seen, cannot be felt, and does not warn until it is already too late. And it is precisely that invisibility that makes it so dangerous. Nighttime habits that make the risk worse. In addition to the central habit we have already mentioned, there are other nighttime behaviors that considerably increase the risk of suffering a stroke. The worrying thing is that many of them are part of the daily routine of millions of people. The first is eating a heavy dinner at a late hour. Eating far too late forces the body to work intensely while we sleep. The digestive system becomes overly active, blood pressure can rise, and sleep becomes more shallow and interrupted. That combination of poor digestion and poor rest ends up affecting the brain. Another harmful habit is drinking alcohol at night. Sometimes people think a glass of wine or a liqueur helps them relax. But the truth is that alcohol dehydrates, alters heart rhythm, and raises blood pressure. Far from being a friend of sleep, it actually becomes a silent enemy of brain health. Excessive use of electronic devices before sleeping is another factor that is often overlooked. The blue light from phones and tablets tricks the brain into believing that it is still daytime. That delays the release of melatonin, the body's natural sleep hormone, and causes a person to take longer to enter deep restorative rest. The lack of restorative sleep not only weakens the body, it also increases inflammation and oxidative stress, two conditions that damage blood vessels. Nighttime dehydration is a problem more common than it seems. Many older people reduce their water intake in the evening so they will not have to get up to go to the bathroom at night. The result is that they go to bed dehydrated, and dehydration thickens the blood, which favors the formation of clots. All these habits end up affecting sleep quality, and poor sleep is, in itself, a risk factor for the brain. Sleeping too little or sleeping poorly raises blood pressure, increases stress levels, and weakens the body's natural repair mechanisms. In other words, it deprives the brain of the chance to recover. Changing these habits may seem like a challenge, but every adjustment adds up. Bringing dinner earlier, moderating alcohol, turning off electronic devices at least 1 hour before sleeping, and drinking a little water before bed are simple decisions that protect brain health in the long term. The message is clear. What we do every night has a direct impact on how we wake up. And when we talk about the brain, those small routines can make the difference between living fully or facing an unnecessary risk. The role of stress and emotions. The brain does not only respond to what we eat or how we sleep, it is also profoundly affected by what we feel. The emotional tension accumulated during the day does not magically disappear at nightfall. Quite the opposite. It often shows up more strongly when we try to rest. That moment of silence, when the body seeks to relax, becomes fertile ground for the mind to revisit arguments, worries, or fears. Various studies have shown that chronic stress increases the likelihood of suffering a cerebrovascular accident. The explanation is simple. When we live under constant tension, the body releases hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline. These substances raise blood pressure, speed up heart rate, and keep blood vessels in a permanent state of alert. In the short term, nothing severe may happen, but over the years, this silent wear and tear gradually deteriorates brain health. I remember the case of Ernest, a 70-year-old man known for his strong character. One night, he had a heated family argument that left him very upset. Although he tried to sleep, he spent hours tossing and turning in bed, going over and over the words he had said. At dawn, his wife noticed he could not get out of bed. He had suffered a stroke during the night. The doctors explained that the episode of intense stress, added to his already elevated blood pressure, was the trigger his brain could not withstand. Ernest's story is not an isolated case. Stress does not only steal our calm, it can also steal our health. That is why it is so important to learn to manage it, especially at night when the body most needs to recover. Fortunately, there are simple techniques that can help. One of the most effective is deep, mindful breathing. Inhale slowly through the nose, hold the air for a few seconds, and exhale through the mouth. Repeating this cycle several times helps reduce muscle tension and calm the mind. Another recommended practice is to write in a notebook before sleeping everything that worries you as a way to release the mental load. It may also help to listen to relaxing music, read something light, or practice a few minutes of guided meditation. Stress is inevitable in life, but letting it accumulate unchecked is a dangerous choice. By releasing that tension every night, we not only care for our inner peace, we also protect our brain from a silent threat that can change everything in an instant. Risk factors that combine. When we talk about strokes, many people believe it is enough to keep an eye on a single aspect of their health. But the truth is that the danger arises when several factors combine at the same time, like pieces of a puzzle that fit together to form a time bomb. Advanced age is, without a doubt, a key factor. Over the years, arteries lose elasticity, the heart works harder, and the brain becomes more vulnerable to changes in circulation. It is not the same to be 40 as to be 70, and that biological difference makes any harmful habit have a greater impact on those who have already traveled farther down the road. Diabetes is another major element. Excess glucose in the blood slowly damages blood vessels, making them more fragile and more susceptible to ruptures or blockages. Many people live with this disease without strict control, believing that a little sugar will not hurt. The truth is that every lapse adds pressure on the brain. High cholesterol also comes into play. Over time, fat accumulates in the arteries, forming plaques that reduce the space through which blood circulates. This not only hinders the passage of oxygen, it also increases the chance that a clot will form and abruptly block the flow. To all this, we add a sedentary lifestyle. A body that does not move loses strength, circulation, and capacity for recovery. Exercise does not have to be extreme. It is enough to walk daily or to do gentle movements to keep the blood flowing. The brain needs that constant flow to function normally. However, when inactivity becomes routine, the risk of suffering a stroke increases considerably. What is most alarming is that these factors rarely appear in isolation. An older person may have hypertension, diabetes, and high cholesterol at the same time while leading a sedentary life. And if you add to that combination the dangerous nighttime habit we talked about earlier, such as excessive salt, self-medication, or getting up abruptly in the early hours, the result is a high-risk scenario. Neurologists describe it as the sum of small loads that, together, bring the system down. It is not a single mistake, but the accumulation of several oversights. That is why prevention should not focus on one point, but on a comprehensive approach. Controlling blood pressure, managing blood sugar, monitoring cholesterol, staying active, and avoiding harmful habits before sleeping. The brain does not fail from one day to the next without reason. Generally, it is the result of years of small decisions that, little by little, weakened its defenses. The good news is that it is never too late to start changing those pieces and assembling a different puzzle, one in which each habit adds protection, not risk. Nothing is as impactful as hearing other people's experiences. Because behind every figure, behind every diagnosis, there are real lives, families, and decisions that make the difference. I want to tell you the story of Martha, a 76-year-old woman who led an apparently normal life. She liked to eat dinner late, accompanied the meal with a couple of glasses of wine, and before sleeping spent more than 1 hour scrolling on her phone and watching television. Her family insisted she change those habits, but she replied that, at her age, she was not going to change anything. One ordinary night, she went to sleep as usual. The next morning, her daughter found her in bed with difficulty speaking and unable to move half of her body. Martha had suffered a stroke during the night. The doctors explained that her nighttime habits had contributed to that outcome. Although she received treatment, she never fully recovered her mobility or her clarity of speech. In contrast, there is the story of Philip, a 72-year-old man. After the death of a close friend from a stroke, he decided he had to make changes. He started by going to bed at the same time every day, moved dinner earlier and made it lighter, eliminated excess salt and nighttime alcohol. He turned off his phone 1 hour before sleeping and devoted 15 minutes to listening to soft music and breathing deeply. In addition, he began to walk half an hour every morning and to check his blood pressure regularly. Today, despite his years, Philip enjoys good health and feels more energetic than ever. His doctor says he has significantly reduced his risk of suffering a cerebrovascular accident. These two stories show us a powerful contrast. Martha thought her habits did not matter, that what she had always done could continue without consequences. Philip understood it is never too late to change, and thanks to that he enjoys a fuller, safer life. The difference between one case and the other lay in the decision to act. The conclusion is clear. What we do every night matters. It is not about living in fear, but about learning from those who have already gone through this experience. Because every testimony reminds us that brain health is in our hands. What to do today to reduce the risk? Listening to stories can open our eyes, but the most important thing is knowing what concrete steps we can take today to protect ourselves. Neurologists insist that knowing the problem is not enough. We must act. The first essential habit: is to establish a stable sleep routine. Going to bed and getting up at the same time every day helps the body regulate its internal cycles. The brain benefits from that stability, as it can enter deep phases of rest that regenerate it. The second step is to move dinner earlier and make it light. Avoiding greasy or very salty foods at night reduces the body's workload and keeps blood pressure at safer levels. Something as simple as a light soup, a bit of fish, or fruit can make a difference. The third habit is to do moderate exercise during the day. There is no need to run marathons. Walking, stretching, dancing, or doing gentle movements is enough to keep circulation active and the heart stronger. The brain needs that constant blood flow to function normally. The fourth step is to stay hydrated. Many older people fear drinking water in the evening because of nighttime bathroom trips, but slight dehydration can thicken the blood and increase the risk of clots. Drinking a glass of water before sleeping in a moderate amount is a protective gesture. The fifth habit is to monitor blood pressure regularly. Having a blood pressure cuff at home and using it several times a week makes it possible to detect unexpected changes. Writing down those values and sharing them with the doctor helps adjust treatments and prevent surprises. To illustrate this, think of what an ideal night to care for the brain would be. Philip, the man we spoke about earlier, eats dinner at 7 in the evening, a light salad with a bit of chicken. He drinks a glass of water and takes a quiet stroll around his neighborhood. He puts his phone aside at 8:30, and at 9, he listens to relaxing music while practicing deep breathing. He goes to bed at 10 and sleeps continuously until morning. That routine, repeated day after day, is an invisible shield that protects his arteries and strengthens his brain health. There are no magic recipes, but there is consistency. Adopting these habits does not mean living with limitations, quite the opposite. It is gaining freedom, energy, and peace of mind. Because taking care of the brain is, in reality, taking care of life itself. When we talk about strokes, many mistaken ideas circulate that, far from helping, put at risk the lives of those who believe them. That is why it is important to pause for a moment to separate myths from truths. One of the most common myths is, it only happens to those who have a family history. Without a doubt, family history can increase risk, but it is not the only cause. A person without a family history can suffer a stroke if they neglect blood pressure, diet, or sleep habits. Thinking we are protected because we do not have a parent or grandparent who suffered one is an error that leads us to let our guard down. Another frequent myth is, if I take aspirin, I am always protected. It is true that aspirin can help prevent clot formation in certain patients, but it is not a universal solution. Not everyone should take it, and doing so without medical supervision can cause serious bleeding in the stomach or in the brain. Aspirin is a tool, but it is not a magic shield. Only a doctor can decide when it is appropriate. A third dangerous myth is, dizziness is not a big deal. Many times, dizziness, numbness, or blurry vision are minimized as passing symptoms. But we have already seen that these can be the first signs of an imminent stroke. Ignoring them is like hearing a fire alarm and deciding not to get up from the couch. The truth is clear: anyone with or without family history can be at risk. No pill can replace proper medical care, and no symptom should be taken lightly. Questioning what we think we know is an act of responsibility toward our own life. That is why the invitation is to turn always to reliable medical sources, to ask without fear, and not to be carried away by rumors or home remedies. When it comes to the brain, the only thing that counts is verified information and immediate action. We have traveled an intense path throughout this video. We talked about the fragility of the brain, about how a nighttime habit can become a silent threat, about the warning signs that must not be ignored, about hypertension as an invisible killer, about the bad habits that undermine our health, about the impact of stress, about the sum of risk factors, and about real stories that show us the price of indifference. We also reviewed the most dangerous myths and discovered what to do today to protect ourselves. The final lesson is simple and powerful. The brain is the most delicate treasure we have, and every habit counts. What you decide to do before sleeping, how you manage your blood pressure, how you eat, how you face stress, everything adds to or subtracts from your brain health. Every choice can bring you closer to a fuller life or put you one step closer to danger. It is not about living in fear, but with awareness. Changing routines, getting medical checkups, listening to the body, and caring for loved ones is an act of love, not only toward oneself, but toward the entire family. Because when a stroke happens, it does not only affect the person who suffers it, it also transforms the lives of those around them. The message I want to leave you with is this: do not wait until it is too late. Start today. Small daily steps can make the difference between waking up each morning with gratitude or facing a reality no one wants. And now, I want to invite you to participate. Tell me in the comments, how old are you and from which country are you watching this video? Also share your experiences, advice, or questions about brain health. Your story may inspire or save someone else. If you found this content useful, do not forget to like it, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to keep receiving information that can help safeguard your life. Remember, living to wake up each morning is not a miracle. It is a consequence of the decisions we make today.